that's a hard story to follow, but I will try. I'm Ed. I have lived in D.C. my whole life. I have, since 1989, worked in nightclubs and bars. I started going to nightclubs and bars in 83, is that right? 83. I fell in love with that environment, that whole, the vibe and the whole thing. Had a few shots of Jägermeister in my time. I was given a T-shirt once. It's called me the Jaeger Monster, and became kind of my world, was going out and enjoying myself like that. When I finished school, I thought, you know, what am I going to do? I was in graduate school. I started working part-time at Trax in 1988, and a new ownership group came in and invited me to be part of what they were doing, and I jumped at the chance. Became one of the owners of Trax in '89. Worked at Trax, and we opened a whole litany of bars, and we are at our 9th bar now, which is number 9. Really clever name, bar 9th bar. But that, that's Trax, it's Trumpets, we opened Cobalt, we had a club called Ozone, was on 18th Street for a while, did a big party at the 930 Club called Millennium, then we opened Nation, and now, then we did Halo, Town, and now Number 9. So I've had a kind of unique front row seat to all kinds of use, abuse, and people who abstain, people who are high and mighty about abstaining, people who want to help, people who don't want to help. I've seen the whole gamut, and spent a lot of my life wondering if I'm enabling people, if I'm creating environments that are better for people to do things that they may otherwise just be doing anyway. Started in Trax in 1989. First party that we did as an ownership group was a Halloween party. Then New Year's Eve from 89 to 90. Mind you, I'm a very young person. I think 23, 22 at that time. And the very first traffic fatality of the new year was someone who left Trax and was killed. Drinking, not able to really drive, tried to drive anyway. So I had a very big moment right when I first started. It just was a big, like, this isn't just a big game, a big party, some big thing. It's a very serious situation where we are creating an atmosphere that should be safe and comfortable for people to enjoy who they are and what they want to do and who they want to be with, but that we should provide it in such a manner that is at least responsible from our standpoint as much as it can be, without infringing on people's personal desires of what they want to do. From that point forward, we tried to adopt a kind of proactive thought process about a cornerstone of our business to be, you know, figuring out the best ways to organize our businesses that somehow limit the negative exposure that people could have to partaking in nightlife activity. And that's not easy to do when you operate bars where 2,000 to 3,000 people a night come, because that's just the odds of being able to control all of that are not very great. I will say that I feel very good about having been at the front row of the evolution of the use of drugs and alcohol in the nightlife world, because it has come to a point where I was very ignorant to it. When I first started, I really did not even know what was going on. People were doing things around me, and I was just dumb. I didn't do any of that. I never did any of it. I've never done any of it. I've never done any drugs. The second I started working in the bars, I stopped drinking completely, so I don't drink, I don't do any of that, and I was just very naive to it all. And I learned very quickly that things were happening that I was just very stupid about, and I learned and I learned and I learned and I learned how many people who worked with us and worked in that environment and worked in the industry were attracted to that kind of a lifestyle and drank so much and did do a lot of drugs. And I feel very good about having seen the trajectory of that usage and how it has changed over the years. And we are certainly at a place that is considerably, seems more reasonable than we have been previously. There were some nation days that were not, I would say, were kind of a blight on our nightlife community, and that was a time when Chris and I actually talked about how we would approach this and how we would try to figure out ways that could make that somehow. I felt so responsible to be part of somehow helping with that situation. And you know, we found out firsthand, as much of a control freak as I am with my businesses and wanting to have everything be as organized as possible and do this and do that, that was something that, much like people who were using couldn't control, we didn't have any way to control. They couldn't control themselves. How could we possibly control them to help them control themselves? And we tried to set up some things, but I think one of the things I noticed at that time was the general apathy of the general community towards the drug use and the partying itself, and how unfortunate it was that people's friends and neighbors weren't more active in trying to say something or do something or step up. And of course, obviously, you know, I think that's because people don't always know what to do or how to do it. They didn't feel like they were equipped to do it. I think that today, my current experience, and I know it's coming from a place of more maturity for myself, but I see a lot more of a community effort just in general from friends and just peers at the group, at clubs and bars, that are a little more self-policing and care and seem to care a little bit more, or feel at least empowered to say something more than they used to. And I think that's a great thing to see. And you know, maybe it's just that I'm seeing it more, and it did used to go on, but I just didn't see it. But I don't think so. I really believe that as a community, there's at least a little more conscious effort to help our brothers and sisters out with that situation. So that's a nice movement to see. But obviously, I think I struggle continuously with how to help that process, or aid in that process, or do whatever seems appropriate in that process, while obviously also trying to be a businessman that makes money off the fact that people want to drink. So it's a strange position for me to be in. Child of alcoholics. I have moments where I feel very awkward about it, and I've had some therapy about it because I don't want to feel like I'm constantly just allowing people to hurt themselves, harm themselves. So it's been a weird place, but I am proof that you can go out and enjoy yourself at clubs and bars and not drink and do drugs, and I try to use that as an example for people that I know or I run into constantly, and I'm always met with the people looking at me like, you don't do any of that, and it just seems very foreign. But hopefully I can be some kind of, I don't want to say role model, but at least somebody that they can look at and think, oh, well, maybe I don't have to black out drunk, you know, put myself through this whole thing. I don't know. So that's kind of my story and where I'm at today. And I'm glad that Chris asked me to be here, because I do have a little bit of a different perspective on this topic.